Hi there, Paul McKay with a four. I've got Colin Savage out of Regina Economic Development with us today to talk to us about what's happened in the Regina Marketplace now and kind of going forward. I know there's some exciting things and some big capital projects going on. Welcome, Colin, and how you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me. It's really good to be here. Economic Development Regina is certainly the place to come to for that kind of insights, Paul. So I'm happy to be here and answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, so the purpose of the information we generally have is just for, to tailor it towards people that are either a business executive or nonprofit executive of a business that has commercial real estate in Regina or is looking at Regina as a new location. From my knowledge of the stuff that we are working on in Regina or have worked on more recently, Regina is a smaller city that is very strong on an agricultural front and a logistics front, and you have some big things happening with canola crush plants and transportation logistics centers and so on and so forth. So it'd be good to hear the stuff that's keeping you busy and gets you excited and the things that you think are kind of the current redeeming traits of Regina to people locally or globally, really.
Certainly happy to help you there. A quick intro into what Economic Development Regina does might be helpful. So Economic Development Regina, or EDR as we call it here, is the economic development agency for the city. They're our sole shareholder. So our purpose is, as you can imagine, trying to grow the greater Regina area economy, attract labor, all of those kind of important things. And, the economy, as anyone who's ever looked at it or studied it understands, it's pretty crazy, broad, and equally deep. So you got to be focused. And what you mentioned, Paul, to start off with is absolutely our main driving, I guess, primary sector would be agriculture. And it's one of the four that we focus on. So we focus on agriculture, we focus on energy. We're now looking at advanced manufacturing, and then there are the food piece that comes with agriculture. So I guess it could be sort of 3+1, you might call it. But those really are the big drivers. And anyone who knows Saskatchewan, I grew up here, lived overseas for 20 years and came back. And it hasn't changed, right? Agriculture, we are a place that grows, we grow, we produce, and we get it out to the rest of the world to feed it. So there's a couple of, big, when you talk about big numbers, and I'm becoming a person who thinks small numbers are more valuable, but people like big. So, Saskatchewan will produce on any given year $18 billion worth of agricultural products. Grow it, export it, done. And one of the things that Regina benefits from when you talked about distribution and transportation is the global transportation hub, or the GTH, our free trade zone and distribution center just outside the city, 1,800 acres with tenants like Loblaws. And then when you're talking about big capital projects, that was one which thankfully the government took on because private industry wouldn't. And so they create something like that and a bypass. And then it brings people, important big players to market, like Cargill. So Cargill's now building a $500 million facility for canola crush, and that's part of a $4 billion sort of surge of investment that's come to the city over the last couple of years, all involved in what you would traditionally say. And I mean, again, I'm a layman. I'm not a farmer. I grew up in the city, but I'm surrounded by 80 million acres of it. I don't really know. And I'm honest, right? I can't. There's a lot of people in the world you might be able to fake with big words and industry terms, but farmers can sniff out a fake. So I don't pretend it. But we've got 80 million acres of cropland, productive cropland around our city. And that's the bulk of Canada's cropland. And so, but to my earlier point about agriculture, you grow it and you get it out. Well, that's like this tiny little narrow bit in the middle now, where we've got Canada's leading ag tech accelerator now in the city, which EDR is a founder of. We're bringing companies from all over the world, 4 right now, of 16 in the recent cohort that are startups in software, drones, robotic tractors, you name it. But then all the way to the other end of it, where we're getting into that canola crush, which is talking about like what are the byproducts and what's the value? And so that's another reason why a key sector of ours is energy, because there's I think there's a misconception out there that energy is and will soon previously be oil and gas. And all of a sudden it's going to become biomass, biofuel, solar, wind, nuclear, whatever. But the reality is oil and gas is going to evolve. And any kind of evolution always brings the original with it. So
Yeah.
you're going to have oil and gas and biodiesel and sustainable aviation fuel and whatever. And so back to that $4 billion of investment, a good chunk of it, almost, well, just over $1 billion, is with the Federated Co-op and AGT Foods, which is building a biodiesel renewable energy center. And there's a number of others happening. So long story short, or maybe to wrap that up and let you talk a little bit,
Yeah.
is there's a lot happening for a city of 260 odd thousand people. There's a lot of it's generating a buzz, but it's also for people that like to plan ahead, generating kind of a, well, where are we going to get all the people from? Like where are we going to put them when we get them? We have a 50,000 job vacancies in the province right now. Doesn't sound like a big number, but when you have a little over 1 million people, it's not insignificant. And then that's going to triple in the next couple of years. 150,000 people, that would be the third largest city in Saskatchewan if it was a city of
Right.
vacancies.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that needs to be built. There's a lot of land to do it on.
Yeah.
And there's a limited number, a very good, but a limited number of smaller developers and groups that could build everything here. So the word is like we're open for people to come. The sky's the limit. Come on down, see what we can build and how we can grow here.
So when I hear all that, it sounds like Regina is doing great. If you had problems, they're good problems, but the good problems are that, and very similar to lots of areas, is how do you get the people required to execute $4 billion of capital investment with the current population? How do you house those people? How do you, if they come, can you keep them? Or like if they come, is it even sustainable to keep them? You probably need some amount of transient workforce to come and just execute on these projects, and then some to stay for the employment. But yeah, 50,000 jobs is not insignificant for the population of the province.
No, and you raise a really good point. Prior to you pressing record, we were talking about my old life in the capital project and capital infrastructure world. And one of the wonderful things that the public sector, namely the government, did during the pandemic was, I mean, they stepped up, right? Everybody else was hoarding their money or cutting jobs or cutting back. And the government needed to step in and make sure that the economy was rolling. And so they announced unprecedented numbers of capital projects. And that was great because it kept a lot of our trades working. Right? It kept our trades working, it kept distribution flowing, despite the fact we had supply chain problems. They kept going. But what they also found was those people who maybe in the past only worked on smaller things or mostly in the private sector with its culture and its flow, they moved over to the public sector and they found there's a different timeline. There's different payments, there's different concerns. Maybe one side has easier access to funds to build things, but they have external pressures where the private has limited funds, but you're running your own boat, doesn't really matter what those around you that are being impacted, or like the public in general is not going to comment on an apartment building going on. But what happened then is that it also absorbed a lot of those trades and construction, really important areas of engineering and other places, where now, like to your point, unprecedented investment, where are we going to get the people to build this stuff? And so we have I think we have a unique challenge, but we also have a unique opportunity here. Saskatchewan is one of the easiest and most streamlined immigration streams for particularly families. They really look at families because they want people to come and put down roots. But then equally, I am one, you are one, right? we're Saskies that left, right?
Yeah.
And some of us came back, but a lot of us are still nearby. And so there's an opportunity to say, hey, look, like we're not, this isn't the Saskatchewan you grew up in, right? Our brand right now, one of our taglines is grow your world here. And you can come and live in Saskatchewan for, not a high, but not a crazy low number either. $100,000 income, you can 29-30% of it is going to be taken up by your expenses. The rest of it's disposable. And on the flip side, you can't do that in Vancouver. You can't do that in Toronto. You can't do that probably even in Winnipeg. So there's a lot of attractive factors, but you still got to get the people here. So there's going to be some challenges, and there's probably going to be people that are going to need to stagger when doing their project and looking at what others are doing rather than just pushing ahead. But I don't see that. I see that as one of, like, if you looked at the world of building or the economy or whatever, and you knew there were 10 things, most of the time, 5 of them are out of your control and 2 of them are a real problem. We probably have 1 or 2 problems.
Yeah.
The rest of it's kind of taken care of. So good time to be here.
Yeah, I mean, they're good problems to have. If you're going to have problems, you want them to be, you need to find people because you've got the work and the money's being invested. We did a study in Calgary years back. Our industry used to say, vacancy rates of office space was 100% correlated with the price of oil, which in 2014 didn't pan out to be true. So we took a deeper dive into it. And what we found is that the correlation of vacancy of office space, which just means employment of people, directly correlated with how many multiple concurrent large capital projects were undergo at the same time. And that's where you get people hiring accountants and lawyers and people that fill office type level seats, but it also turns into construction and labor and housing and everything else. And when Calgary had our downturn in 2014, it was because we had a pipeline issue and we did not have additional big capital projects coming into play. And that's why, our office buildings haven't filled since, largely. But for you, like, the capital investment coming in is what spurs the creation of numerous opportunities, and what drives the demand for people. The challenge you might have is getting them, keeping them, housing them, and so on and so forth. Which is a fantastic opportunity to have for everybody, and is why
absolutely. Like, and I think our for somebody who doesn't, or for many, right? Because Regina is, I mean, we're honest. Like, I'm not punching. I'm picking the lanes where I can win.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to compete with people on grand scales and a whole variety of other things, because that's not where I'm going to win, and that's not where I want to. But one of the things I've recognized is, when you talk to people that, first and foremost, like your audience, that understands real estate or the importance of commercial real estate in their own business planning or whatever, they'll say, oh, well, when I look at Regina, if I read industry reports, it'll tell me that there's almost no sublease segment. It's either a tenant or an owner. Those 2 types, right? So it's not very vibrant, right? I mean, and that, Colin, and that jives with the fact that Regina is an administrative capital. There's a lot of public sector and government employees. You see, you kind of have these 2 rather than 3 circles of groups. And so, our only options are, we have to fight for a limited number of tenancies, direct tenancies or primaries, or we have to build our own building. And so I go, well, okay, that's true. And it would be very hard with any other momentum to create a sublease segment. But the fact that, like we've said, we have the investment coming from major organizations, which are going to attract those smaller professional services groups, that's creating demand already on its own.
Yeah.
So you may see owners start saying, hey, like, there's an opportunity to really create a sublease sector, which is a little more cyclical, right? Where year to year, 3-year to 3-year, 5-year to 5-year leases, in addition to the longer term 5, 10+ year ones that we have for all of the federal and provincial and municipal government groups. So it creates a more diverse real estate sector. And it has that momentum coming with money, clout, and people. Whereas in somewhere else, like if you're trying to recreate it, good luck. Like you got to drum up one of those three, it's almost impossible. So the fact that we have it and the city and others, like they're looking creatively at ways to make what we have work in our downtown. And then we've got areas that are growing like crazy out into eastern Regina, along the highway towards places like White City and Emerald Park. Like there's a lot of momentum there with a lot of support behind it. So I think there's an opportunity, and it'd be a great time to start something here.
Perfect. And for groups that maybe are either already located in Regina, or more so even that are looking at Regina as a potential new hub, with a hub and spoke model, maybe opening up a location in Regina. Are there any words of wisdom you can provide in just navigating, like, give you guys a call, obviously, but
yeah, number one. Yeah, I mean, number one, like that's the point. Like, I mean, you and I, like professionals like us who have, who work, it's like me, I guess I would say, people who work in economic development come from a variety of different backgrounds, but they don't normally have things like international expertise or commercial real estate understanding, or even the sector experience we have. Our CEO and president used to be the CEO and president of Canadian Agribition. So he knows the cattle industry, he knows the agriculture industry, he knows the people that operate there. So it's like it's not a well-intentioned, well-connected shop of people who've come out of public administration courses, or people with industry experience, networks, and that support that can help them move along. But I mean, I would think if you're looking at a place like Regina, and I know we focused on key sectors earlier on, but right now, like sectors are sectors are sectors. Like everything is sort of converging. So if there's a technology player that thinks, well, Regina, I'm not so sure, like it's an ag place or it's in manufacturing. Yeah, but there's an underlying layer that has to be technology. And that it requires coders, it requires software developers and testers, and they'll be able to tap into every kind of industry here that, as I said, are now converging. So you may think you're not directly related to the key sectors, but you will find out that you are, and closer than you ever thought. So give it a shot. And I mean, the economics are strong, right? You get smart people with post-secondary education who love where they live, just want to find a dynamic job and want to do what they can here. That's a great selling point to have, other than trying to compete with other sexier cities. Not to say that we're not.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I would love it if we can follow up with you again in another 90 days and have you back and just keep in touch on the ongoings, what's happening in Regina. When we're there, which we will be soon enough, we'll stop in and put face to name to face.
Absolutely, Paul, anytime. And yeah, come on by, talk to us, give us a call, and grow your world here. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks so much.